kayfabe. I don't buy into it, a lot of it. Like especially talking about canceling Elon's company's contracts and government subsidies. Like the amount of data alone that he has access to with XAI and Starlink support for the military over in the Ukraine, I don't buy it one bit. And that's also obviously the SpaceX's pivotal role in being able to get to the International Space Station and put satellites up in orbit efficiently. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
All right, Truth Seekers, as you know, there was a dispute between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump. I think I may have gotten down to the bottom of the matter, but I will begin with this clip, and it was walk through the situation.
But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have all. We want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, he became a little bit different, and I can understand that. But he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next.
Oh yeah, it came.
I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
So we'll end it right there. As you know, Elon Musk has come out very strongly against the president today, even accusing him of being an associate of Epstein. A real feud between Musk and the president would contradict my thesis regarding a white hat alliance between Musk, Trump, and the military. This thesis does involve the theory concerning meaningful coincidences and a notion of technology being used to alter the outcome of events. Musk's position as a special government employee was announced to end on May 30th, and I uploaded a video commemorating his receipt of the key and meaningful coincidences around that. And so the theory goes of a kayfabe, which to me sounds very similar to key fob. The kayfabe idea uses a term from wrestling to describe a totally contrived fight, a fake fight, kabuki theater. But I come across certain elements of the story that seem to tell a different picture. At the moment, I'm not sure of the matter, but I'll present what I have. So I played you that clip from Trump saying he's disappointed in Elon because Elon knew about the bill. So Elon saw that, and to you replied, false. The bill was never shown to me, even once, and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could even read it. Big influencer Katie Pavlik to that replied, whatever your feelings are about the cost of the BBB, this isn't true. All portions of legislation were online from 11 committees and available to read for weeks ahead of it being sent to the House Budget Committee. And unfortunately, this bill, BBB, it actually was the Build Back Better bill. It was in the works for 14 months. Build Back Better is the World Economic Forum and Democrat Party terminology. When Trump came into power, he switched it to Big Beautiful Bill, but it's the same issue of very excess spending. In the last statement available from Trump so far, Trump pleaded his case on why such a bloated bill is still important to be passed at this time. He says, I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. It's a record cut in expenses, $1.6 trillion, and the biggest tax cut ever given. If this bill doesn't pass, there will be a 68% tax increase and things far worse than that. I didn't create this mess. I'm just here to fix it. This puts our country on a path of greatness. Make America great again. Clandestine, a brilliant account, gives his understanding of the BBB bill situation. The bill has lots of things that advance Trump's agenda, like tax cuts, finishing the wall, etc. There are lots of pork added by Congress. However, it's a budget reconciliation bill, so we only need 50 votes as opposed to 60 in the Senate. So Trump and his team are willing to let Congress get their pork so long as Trump is able to pass what is needed to advance his agenda. Elon doesn't like the extra pork and wants to slim it down, and Trump just wants to get the bill passed so he can fix pressing problems. I can see both sides of the argument. I can see why Elon wants to slim it down, and I can also see why Trump is okay with sacrificing some pork in exchange for getting what's needed. What I do not understand is why this disagreement is playing out publicly. It seems like something that could have been solved behind closed doors, which leads me to believe that there may be an element of political theater going on. what purpose, I don't know, but I find it hard to believe Elon would jeopardize the ongoing war against the deep state for his own personal agenda. And so there's like a wrinkle in this story, which I come across a bit late, which I'll share with you. So there was this reporting by Mark Caputo. I'll play this clip.
And the FAA, or better said, the DOT administrator, Sean Duffy. And then he had this big blow up, which we first reported at Axios, with Scott Bessant in the White House, outside of the Oval Office, a screaming match. One of the things I didn't report in there, which I guess we can just use as a bonus to the War Room faithful, is that during that shouting match between Elon Musk and Scott Bessant, I think in April, Scott Bessant told him, "You're a fraud. You promised $2 billion, $2 trillion in cuts. Then it was $1 trillion. Then it was $500 billion. Now it's only $150 million. You're a fraud." And then Elon Musk apparently shot back at him, saying that Bessant had run a failed hedge fund, and on and on and on. But that was a really personal encounter, and Bessant had more allies on his side and in the cabinet, and ultimately with Donald Trump.
And so I investigated further into this, first with Caputo of Axios being not a very unbiased publication. I asked Grok, from public information, what are Mark Caputo's political leanings? Perceived neutrality or libertarian? Coverage praised across political spectrum. Christina Pashaw, a key figure in Ron DeSantis' team, called Caputo one of the only objective and trustworthy reporters in legacy media. 2018, Caputo faced backlash from conservatives after tweeting Trump supporters heckling CNN at a Tampa rally were toothless and garbage people. He then later apologized, clarifying that he was target only specific crowds' behavior, not all Trump supporters, and deleted the tweets. Caputo's post revealed a critical perspective on both parties. For example, he challenged conservatives on their stance toward Democrats regarding foreign policy and criticized Republican positions on remote voting as harmful to broader interests. He also suggested Democrats in red states might fare better by punching left, indicating a strategic critique of progressive tactics. He highlighted DeSantis' political missteps while acknowledging his policy successes, maintaining a neutral tone by leaving policy judgments to others. Caputo expressed concerns about media bias, particularly from New York publications, that he believes reflect a liberal, coastal perspective, which he argues alienates conservatives. So from this, I conclude he's not the worst. He's possibly a Team DeSantis, but that's not certain either. And given that he presented himself to Steve Bannon with a story, I ask, would Steve Bannon have any political reasons to be bitter against Donald Trump? Steve Bannon and Donald Trump have had a complex relationship marked by periods of close collaboration and significant fallout, which could give Bannon reasons to be bitter. Post-White House, Bannon made comments critical of Trump and his family in Michael Wolff's book, Fire and Fury, targeting Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner over their Russia contacts. Trump responded by calling Bannon Sloppy Steve and claimed he had nothing to do with my election. By 2024, Bannon remained a vocal supporter of Trump's campaign, but reports suggest he was not reinstated as a central figure in Trump's inner circle. If Bannon felt excluded from Trump's second term or saw others gain influence, this could rekindle bitterness, especially if he believed his contributions were undervalued. So this could be to get clicks. It might not be true, or maybe it's true. Daily Mail reported May 30th, insane moment Elon Musk shoved Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessant during a screaming match. It cites reporting done to Steve Bannon, who I've shown you could possibly be biased. Per Daily Mail, Steve Bannon told the publication, that Musk's turbulent time in the White House was marred when he physically shoved 62-year-old Treasury Secretary Scott Bessant. Scott supposedly called him out and said, "You promised us $1 trillion in cuts, and now you're like at $100 billion, and nobody can find anything. What are you doing?" And that really pissed Elon off and led to the shove. A source had reported to Axios that there were 4 points of contention Musk had with the Trump administration that ultimately led to this fallout. There were legislation cuts to electric vehicle credits, and this was despite Tesla spending $240,000 in lobbying efforts for the credits to continue. Elon Musk wanted to stay on longer after his special government employee designation expired for the 130-day limit. Now, as the spat between Trump and Musk emerged, he's not going to be on as advisor, at least not at the moment. Apparently, per the source, Musk wanted the FAA to use Starlink for air traffic control. And then supposedly the administration saw this as being a conflict of interest. And And also, you can't run the entire air traffic control just off satellites. And the final straw was Trump abruptly withdrawing nomination of Jared Isaacman to be the NASA administrator. Isaacman was apparently an ally of Elon Musk. Based on this clip, most people find they tend to like Jared.
Crushing bureaucracy that impedes progress. And here's where Congress plays a role. Every state's got some equity that they care about and they protect like hell, and it impedes the big progress. You know, like I tell you, I love talking to all the senators, and the Senate was so fair to me, and I know I would have had a lot of great votes. But you talk to some senators, and they're like, you know, we have a local rocket club that supports these schools, and NASA contributes it to every year, and I want to make sure that continues. It's like, well, why can't you do a car wash for the rocket club? Like, this isn't huge dollars. Why can't the community raise those funds? And then you might say, well, what's wrong with a couple rocket clubs, you know, to inspire the kids all across the country? Well, one turns to 10, turns to thousands, and it becomes a distraction. Those are parts to delete. Those are resources that are draining away from what every senator should care about, which is how do we get to the moon, get to Mars, and shock the world with world-changing headlines. That's what people are waiting for from.
Yeah, so basically, he aligned with Elon Musk's goal of cutting government waste. The National File reported that NASA nominee Jared Isaacman is a major Democrat donor. Isaacman gave more than $40,000 to the Democrat Senate Campaign Committee 2 weeks before the 2024 election. Isaacman gave $100,000 to Schumer's Senate Majority PAC, and this PAC is solely dedicated to building a Democrat majority in the U.S. Senate, according to their website. Isaacman even gave cash to the California Democrat Party on October 29, 2024, just 1 week before the November 5th election. Here's Trump's statement on Isaacman.
It disturbed him. He wanted, and rightfully, you know, he recommended somebody from that he, I guess, knew very well. I'm sure he respected him, but to run NASA, and I didn't think it was appropriate. And he happened to be a Democrat, like totally Democrat. And I say, you know, look, we won. We get certain privileges, and one of the privileges we don't have to appoint a Democrat.
Absolutely. And so Elon points out that Trump said very nice things about Jared in December of 2024. And I presume this was probably before Trump knew that Jared was a Democrat. So he points out this is what he said about Jared, sort of say that Trump's like a hypocrite. Now, going back to the physical altercation, I asked Grok to show any evidence that supports that there really was a physical altercation between Scott Bessant and Elon Musk. A lot of its sources pointed to Steve Bannon, who I showed you could have a political axe to grind against Trump potentially. And something that just didn't sit right with me is Scott Bessant actually created a post on X on May 30th. Now tell me if this guy dislikes Elon Musk or is showing that he had a fight with Elon Musk. Let me know.
Look, I think Elon came in and in 100 days did some very important work. And, you know, I would characterize two principles with Doge here. One is the absolute level of cost cutting, which Elon has set in motion. So Doge is not going to end with Elon. You know, it is a way of thinking about cutting costs, and it's also a way of thinking about making the government more productive and more efficient. So, you know, I would expect that these would be the initial savings, and they will continue from here. You know, at Treasury, we have incorporated several members of the Doge team. They've become the fully trained, fully compliant Treasury employees.
So for someone who is not impressed with the total cuts by Doge, supposedly saying that it should have been $1 trillion when it was only $100 billion, do you think that he would then go on later to praise the efforts of Doge and say that the Treasury has hired some who are on with Doge? It just doesn't fit for me. But as far as the evidence of a confrontation having occurred, we have Axios making its claimed report April 23rd that a shouting match happened between Bessant and Musk April 17th approximately. Newsweek said it happened in April in general, and that it was physical confrontation. Daily Mail said it was initially reported in April. Times of India said April 2025, initially shouting, later physical. New York Post said published April 23rd, but said happened last week before April 23rd, approximately the 17th. And then CNN also said last week before April 24th. So I think a lot of these publications were co-signing Axios' 23rd statement. One of them had mentioned that it was actually the same day the Italian Prime Minister had visited the White House. And so I asked, when did Prime Minister of Italy visit the White House? And Georgia Meloni supposedly visited April 17th for a bilateral meeting with President Donald J. Trump. The meeting was confirmed by multiple sources. She supposedly has knowledge of the altercation, so if anyone can ask her, she may be able to confirm it. If there was a dramatic physical altercation between Musk and the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessant, then that is probably the true origin of the new feud between Trump and Musk. The thinking would be that Trump chose to side with Bessant over Musk, and maybe Trump was also concerned about Elon's judgment, given that Jared Isaacman was presented to Trump as like a good guy, but Trump later found out that he's a prominent Democrat donor. Earlier today, Trump made this post that really pissed Elon off, most likely. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do. And he just went crazy. This is like Trump's typical way of talking about spats and feuds. But the aspect about it that does sort of seem like it's a kayfabe WWE type event is that Trump said he asked him to leave. That's very significant in that Elon's time as a special government employee has naturally came to an end by duration. So this does come off as a little bit like story crafting in a sense. Though the counter argument would be that Trump could have kept Elon on as an advisor, but that would have to be a separate announcement. Now, what really complicates the whole idea of this being orchestrated between the two, for me, is a statement by Trump made 3 years ago. He said, when Elon Musk came to the White House asking me for help on all of his many substantial projects, where it's electric cars that I don't drive, driverless cars that crash, or rocket ships to nowhere, without which subsidies he'd be worthless, and telling me how he was a big Trump fan Republican, I could have said, drop to your knees and beg, and he would have done it. So Trump told us this about Elon Musk years ago. I was never aware of this post. You would think that a statement would have been made by Elon about this post in reconciliation or agreement or something, but that never occurred. From the looks of it, it appears that the dispute between Musk and Trump is organic. Both sides present very good arguments about why the big beautiful bill should or should not go forward. But confirming with the Italian Prime Minister that a fight did occur between Musk and Bessant is key, because it is natural that Trump would be inclined to side with his Treasury Secretary over Elon Musk, in my view. I think that could be the key, proving that the whole thing is real, is just two adults with big egos going at it, causing Bitcoin to crash, causing Tesla to crash. But as covered in my previous videos, there may be forces that, through what we see as meaningful coincidence, cause the actors and players who take various positions, maybe in accordance or even against their will. One little strange tidbit, which I'll bring up as another comment, is how just days ago, Donald Trump on his Truth Social publicly co-signed the idea that Joe Biden left this world in 2020 and that bots or doubles could be involved. And then Elon Musk, at this point the second most popular person in the world, after Trump, the most popular person in the world, makes a similar accusation about Trump. Where is the man who wrote these words? Was he replaced by a body double? So here you have two of the most popular people in the world within a couple of days making claims of body doubles. Like, this is remarkable. That's not to say that these individuals are living and not acting what we see before us. Just pointing the coincidences out doesn't stand as evidence of assimilation or complicated white hat, gray hat plots. It's just important to keep all these possibilities in mind. Thanks for watching.